Hello all and welcome to the Transition and Moving Away from Home webinar. Thank you for tuning in. I know we're all pretty zoomed out by now, but on a positive note, this is the last year's webinar for the year, and we hope that you take away some good pointers from today. My name is Erica and I am from William Angus Institute. I'm here today with my colleague Anthony from Monash University. For the purpose of today, we'll be representing the Tertiary Information Services. If you don't know much about the Tertiary Information Services, we're also known as TIES. We are a collective of universities, TAFEs, and independent colleges that help high school students prepare for future aspirations. We advise you and assist you in the different opportunities there are after high school. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the various traditional owners of the land on which we are presenting from. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people viewing this webinar today. We have two guests with us today. We have Cassidy from Monash University. Hi, Cassidy.
Hi, everyone.
And we have James from Swinburne University. Hi there.
G'day, how you going?
And they'll be both sharing their experiences with us. We have also a few of our TIES exec members behind the scenes, and they'll be assisting us tonight. You'll have the opportunity to ask the panel questions throughout this session. So please type them in the chat box and we'll be able to go through them. If there are more specific questions, feel free to speak to your career practitioner or to the Institute directly. The recording of this webinar will be available for you to view in the TIES website. So let's kick it off. So what experiences to expect? Studying after high school is much more than just a study. It's an exciting time in your lives as you discover more freedom than you've ever had. While studying, you'll have the opportunity to join clubs, societies, and sporting events. I know some institutes have hundreds of society clubs and things like cooking clubs, movie societies. Some are a little bit more niche and a little bit more funky and different, like medieval themed societies and more. So no doubt there'll be something that you will like. Many institutions will give you the opportunity to study overseas, giving you an amazing travel experience without putting your studies on hold. So fingers crossed for New Year's easing of restrictions. And of course, through all of this, you have an incredible opportunity to meet new people and try new things. So while it might feel like studying is a big step, know that it's an amazing time in your life and there's much more to the experience than just hitting the books. And, you know, institutions can help you in every step of the way. While the transition from high school to further study is an exciting one, it can also be really daunting. It's important to know that the institutions are there to support you every step of the way. Particularly for regional students, moving away from your friends and family can be a daunting experience, no doubt. It's important to know that institutions have a number of support services to assist you. After all, you're not the first person to move away to study, and you won't be the last. So it's fair to say institutions have a pretty good idea on how to help you. It's obviously very exciting making the move to a big city to study, but there are some things you might want to start thinking about and potentially even starting to chat to your parents or guardians about. And that's definitely accommodations, one very important thing. So if you're moving cities to study, then you're probably going to need somewhere to live, right? There's a number of options available, and now is the right time to start thinking about these options. A homestay might be the right option for you. You might be lucky enough to have friends or family living near the institute that you can bunk with, or you can take the spare bedroom. This could be your cheapest and your easiest option. Another option might be living off-campus accommodation through a private student living accommodation provider. These buildings are often high-rise apartment style living and might have students from a number of different institutes living in them. Some institutions will also have an offer on-campus accommodation options such as residential colleges and halls of residence. You'll likely be very close to the campus and will potentially be living with hundreds of students from the institution. Or if you feel more comfortable renting a share house with friends, that might be a really good option as well. There's plenty of options and opportunities, and institutions will have lots of information available for you to help discover which option is the best and the right one for you. Now, living independently, that's something else that we have to think about. When you move to another city for study, or even if you simply move out of home in your own town or in your own city, not only is your learning going to be more independent, but your living will obviously be too. You'll need to manage your new workload and find the right balance between study, work, and life. When you move out, it might be the very first time you've had to cook for yourself every night, do the groceries, and make sure bills are paid on time for things like internet, phone, electricity, water, and gas. And of course, all of these things cost money. So, how are you going to afford your new student life? Maybe you'll need to get a casual or a part-time job. Maybe you'll need to investigate things like youth allowance through Centrelink. Maybe you need to have a conversation now with your parents or guardians to discuss these options. And hey, look, if you burn a couple of meals like I did at the start, that's completely okay. No one's judging. It's all a learning experience. So keep in mind through all of these, there's lots of assistance available, and we'll talk about the assistance available to pay for your study fees in a minute. And so when you move, whether it's moving away from home or moving cities or moving towns, you're coming out of your comfort zone. So the transition from high school to university or post-school study is a challenging one, but a really exciting one. You'll have the opportunity to join clubs and societies like we mentioned, and you'll have the option to meet new people, explore new ideas that will help you settle in. You'll have a lot more freedom. However, remember that with a lot of freedom comes a lot of responsibilities. But there's plenty of assistance and support available if you lose your way and need a little nudge in the right direction. So why not start planning and practicing now? I mean, not quite right now, because just wait till we all finish the webinar. So I guess I would like to start asking our two stars of today, James and Cassidy, how their experience has been. So I'll start with you, Cassidy. How did you find the transition from high school to tertiary education?
Thanks, Erica. So I took a gap year between high school and going to university. That gap year that itself was a transition, I will say, but it's certainly a very major difference. Of course, high school, everything's so structured. You've got a very specific place you need to be at all times. And in university, I strongly recommend you do go to the classes, but most of the classes aren't even mandatory. So it goes very much into being very self-driven and self-motivated. So I would say, yeah, this is a very great responsibility, especially for young people to sort of take on. So if you can sort of find a way to adhere to a more disciplined lifestyle, now's the time, because if you're not disciplined when you go to university, it's going to be possible, but it's going to be a lot less fun than if you are.
That's so true. That's such a good tip. Thank you, Cassidy. What about for you, James? Did you find the transition that was quite a bit of a shock to you as well? Like, were you really used to structured classes?
Yeah, well, unlike Cassidy, I went straight out of school to university. The first couple of weeks, you definitely struggle just to get your own organisation going. But once you can find the time in your weeks and be disciplined by yourself, it really becomes easy. That's whether you choose to go to all your lectures or watch them online. Just finding the right balance for yourself early on can be a little bit tricky, but once you get going, it's quite a smooth transition. Particularly if you ask for help when you need it early, because the universities are very good at providing that help early on when you first transition.
Yeah, for sure. And so, talking about, having a balance, how was it like making new friends? Where did you find sort of new places to socialize or within the institute? Okay.
Well, the first week, there's most universities will do an orientation week, which at the moment is a little bit difficult with the structure online. But hopefully universities are back to doing those open weeks next year, where you get a taste for all your classes and you get to meet people through that. but also just in your classes. A lot of university classes will force you to do group work, which
Mhm.
not only is it good to learn to work with people, but it also means that you have to make friends early on, which is really beneficial. And some of the people that I was in classes with in my first year, which is 4 years ago now, I'm still friends with today.
Oh, that's so good. You know, make friends for a lifetime. What about you, Cassidy? How do you feel about that? How did you make friends at the start?
So when I first got to university, I was on res, which is just an incredible way of making friends, I will say. I mean, you're sort of stuck in a hall with 100, 200, 300 sometimes other people. You're going to be around them for a long time. So they really do strongly encourage you to make friends, and it's very easy to, especially if you've got common spaces. But I found, yeah, the friends which I've made, which have really stuck around the longest, came from all these special interest societies and just friends you make during classes. Um, University is a challenge. So going through these sorts of challenges with your classmates is a really great way to form incredibly strong bonds. And these bonds, they do last for life.
Yeah, great. And how about clubs and societies? You know, there might be some students that are, you know, watching tonight and they might be interested in all various different things. So, did you join any clubs or societies, or have you already?
Clubs and societies are such an amazing way of making friends. When I first started university, I think I joined 13, which is
You're very keen.
yeah, I was a very, very keen first year. I went to the events, probably about three of them. For me, it was German speaking, theatre, and international relations. And you make some incredible friends at those things because it's almost like you lose any of the awkwardness of making new friends because you always know exactly what to talk about. It's just wonderful.
That sounds awesome. What about for you, James? Did you join any clubs or societies?
Yeah, so I didn't quite go into the clubs as such. I did join the student union. They had events basically weekly. So there was sausage chisels and free food, which is always an attraction.
Yeah.
Uh, and you meet people through that. They have like table tennis challenges and things like that. Um, some of the clubs were very similar to my interests. Unfortunately, I was moved to a football club nearby as well, so I just couldn't quite juggle that. I found it was going to be a bit much for me, but some of the clubs at all of the unis, it's quite amazing what they can do. As you mentioned before, you see at Swinburne they've got a medieval club and they dress up in all the old gear. It's really phenomenal to see.
That's awesome. And so, Cassidy, what I know you mentioned that you're living in Rest. So tell us a little bit about that. Have you always lived at no, tell us a bit about the accommodation side of things.
Living on res it's an extremely interesting experience, and I don't mean that in the all interesting way. No, it's just a really wonderful way of sort of not only meeting new people but sort of understanding yourself. Um, a lot of the time when you're making friends outside of res, you're seeing them sort of you're seeing everyone at their best, which is quite wonderful. But on res, you get to see everyone as their whole selves. You get to see them, up at 3 a.m. in their dressing gown, making 3 packs of 2-minute noodles and just hoping that nobody sees them. And and everyone sees you like that as well. So you really do get to see everyone as the whole picture. It's wonderful for sort of rounding yourself out and giving you almost a very realistic expectation of this is what life is like. This is how people are like. And when I've got my down days, so does everyone else.
Yeah. And were you like 100% sure about Reza, or how did you get into those residential colleges? How did
So
you find it?
I had a couple of friends who'd come to Monash earlier. I had some friends in higher year levels, and they'd said, "Oh, I went to res in my first year, and it was amazing." And so yeah, I was a little bit curious. I was also a little bit skeptical, I will say. I was like, "Oh, that can't be good." 25 people sharing a kitchen. That there's no way that works. So anyway, they told me the second that application's open, just send one in. If you change your mind, you can say no in the end. But I didn't change my mind. I went, and it's a big shock when you go. I will say,
Yeah.
especially if you're, living in a small family, going from between, 3 and 6 people in the house to, again, 200,
Yeah.
it's a huge shock, but it is just a really no holds bar, action packed, just fun experience.
That sounds awesome. What about for you, James? What was the accommodation like? Have you moved around or have you always stayed in the same location? What was it like for you to find your initial accommodation?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that there was a few people. So I went to school in Geelong, and there was a few people that were coming up to Melbourne with me, or not necessarily with me, but to other universities. And because a lot of the universities are so easily accessed by public transport, we were able to live in the same place. Um, as Cassidy said, living with other people, you do learn a lot about yourself, what you can tolerate with how much social interaction you can have. I never knew how I liked my dishes washed until I watched someone else do it. So
Delicious.
it's a really good learning curve. And if you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone, you definitely grow really quickly. Um, so I was very fortunate that I was able to move into with some friends early, which made it.
Perfect. No, that sounds wonderful. Now, what was it like, I guess, managing? You both have mentioned managing your time when it comes to your social life. How was it managing your commitments with studies? So, like, learning to live with new people while learning new stuff, and I guess the fun thing about going to university or TAFE or independent colleges is that you go to a place where you've actually chosen to study that. At school, you do a broad of different things. And then when you actually go into higher education, you can choose what you want. So how was it like managing? So first of all, choosing that and then managing both commitments. Cool. Cassidy.
Sure thing. So I'm doing electrical engineering at Monash. So I'd always wanted to be an engineer. So it was extremely exciting to come to a place where I was just going to be dedicating all my time to learning what I really enjoyed. Um, and yeah, it is a massive transition. But the thing is, most tertiary institutions, unis, TAFEs, and other institutions, they try to make it as easy as possible for you to transition. So they will start off quite light on, and it does get progressively more and more difficult, but you're ready for it. So when you start off, you won't have all that much commitment. You'll be going to classes, but they might be light on with the homework, and then slowly it'll build up, and you'll be ready for it. I think
Mm,
that's a really wonderful way of how these institutions all tend to work these days.
yeah. And I think the thing with most institutes is they've had that hybrid learning for quite some time, not even now with the pandemic. So you've had that flexibility of assisting some classes and lecturers and sort of balancing and mixing it up.
Mm.
So no, that's great. How about for you, James? How did you find sort of the balance between it all?
Yeah, well, as you just mentioned, the hybrid learning, it's quite different from high school where all your classes or your lectures are recorded. So that helps with your time management a lot. It also means that if there's something that you can't quite grasp, you can go back and you can rewatch it, which really helps, especially if you learnt something week 1 or 2 and then there's an assignment in week 4 and you've forgotten, so you can go back, which is a real benefit of the hybrid learning. As for me, I study marketing and advertising, and it's quite a broad, especially early on. The subjects are there's quite a range. So in the cohort, you end up working alongside some similar people with interests that are similar to yours, and you work together in a lot of, even if they're individual assignments, you'll say, oh, hey, what did you do with this? And they shoot back, oh, I tried to go this way. So even though a lot of your assignments are individual, you're with your cohort. And at the same time, you still have a tutor that looks after you. So you can shoot them an email at any time. And it's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you to both. I think It sounds like it's been a positive and, you know, you've had a lot of support. So I think that's really great for anyone who's watching the webinar tonight to feel like, okay, I might give it a go. I'm a bit concerned, but I'll give it a crack. Alrighty, so I think we're now going to move on to Anthony. I'll leave it to you.
Thanks, Erica. Thanks, guys. Some really good insight there. Fees and costs. Now, most study is not free, unfortunately. But one of the great things about being an Australian citizen or a permanent resident is that the Australian government wants you to get a tertiary education. The government offers fee assistant programs, including HEX Help, Fee Help, Vet Student Loans, government subsidised places, based on the type of course that you'd like to study and your citizenship or resident status. So these fee assisted programs are where the government gives you a loan to pay your tuition fees and you pay them back once you've graduated and you're earning over a certain salary. For example, students that get HEX Help or Vet Student Loans to help pay for their tertiary course will start repaying their loan when they earn over a current salary threshold of about $46,000 per year. Please note that this threshold amount could possibly change in future years, so it's best to check the Study Assist website for more information. The loan repayment generally comes out of your pay with tax and is a small amount per week. It's really important to do some research into fees because not all the fees structures are the same, and to understand whether the fee support might be available for you. You may have also heard of the Victorian government's free TAFE initiative, which is where students can undertake a range of certificates, diplomas and advanced diplomas with their course fees covered by the government. Students still might need to pay fees for materials or amenities, and the courses are for high demand areas like nursing. So that may change from year to year as well. Once again, it's important to do some research. Centrelink, as Erica mentioned before, is also a great resource, especially regarding youth allowance for students. And I'd recommend all Year 12 students to check out the website for more information. Another way to cover these living costs is to go through and get a scholarship. Now, I'm sure you've heard of scholarships before. They vary in size and are generally given out based on either merit or equity. Merit simply means that the scholarship is based on your scores and performance or application standard. Equity scholarships help students cover the costs of studying higher education, particularly those who may not have been able to afford it otherwise. There are many ways you can apply for scholarships. Some can be applied for directly through VTAC. Some you may need to apply directly through the institutions, and others you may be automatically considered on based on your application details or C's application. We'll talk a little bit about C's a bit further on. If you want to click there, Erica, thanks. Managing a budget. Now we touched base on how you as a student can manage your social life and networking. I guess more thought needs to be given to actually the financial side of actually participating as a student as well. So although fee assistance will help cover the cost of your study, remember there might be a number of other costs that you have to consider in this next stage of your life. More immediate costs might include things like rent, groceries, entertainment, and utilities. And if you haven't already, it might be time to start doing a budget and to figure out what's going to work best for you. You might need to ensure that you have a casual or part-time job to help cover these costs. At this point, once again, I'd like to go back to our student panel, Cassidy and James. I think, Cassidy, I'll start with you. Do you have a budget? How do you manage that budget? I think you made reference to part-time work as well.
Thanks, Anthony. So yeah, of course, when you go into uni, budgeting is a very major part of, I don't want to say it's a major part of your life, but it's sort of a major part of how you can sort of jug along. So the two big things are going to be rent and utilities if you're living in a place where you do have to pay utilities along with rent, and food. So rent is pretty stable. Food is where you really do have a lot of choice in what you can do. When I first moved to uni, I was coming out of a gap year. So, I saved up and tried to build a bit of a nest egg. So for the first few months, at least, I could coast along effectively. But yeah, you keep a nice strict budget on food. Try not to eat too much. Try not to eat too much Uber Eats, especially with the new service fees and all that. And just, yeah, I strongly recommend learning to, cook large amounts of food at once, because the more you cook at once, the cheaper it is. I've got a big 5 kilo bag of rice just sitting right to my left.
Yeah.
It cost me something like $6. That's a lot of food for $6.
Certainly
But
is.
yeah, budget, and whenever you can buy in bulk, just buy in bulk, really.
Excellent. James, how about yourself? Have you got a budget, and how do you actually manage that?
Yeah, well, it's similar to Cassidy. As he just said, I at the start of the week, I build a little menu in my head for what I'm going to do for the week, and usually it does involve the same meal a couple of times, because I'll cook it in bulk on the Sunday, and it gives you a lot of meals. But yeah, basically ensuring that you don't do the Uber Eats, which if you do have a rough plan of what you're going to.
Looks like we just lost James a little bit there. Hopefully that'll clear up.
Student res to eat with other people. It's always a great way to save a little bit of money. And yeah, just over the holidays before you go to uni, if you can get a little bit of work to have a little bit of a nest, it's always it's always handy, so that you don't have to freak out week one when you spend $100 on food easily.
Actually, I'll ask you both this question. Cassidy, I'll start with you again. Just given these times of pandemic and being able to find work, has it been an option for you?
Finding work during this pandemic can be quite difficult. However, there's quite a few sectors where a great deal of people within those sectors have sort of moved back home, especially in places near these tertiary institutions. I mean, around Monash, a lot of people, because they're working from home, that means there's a lot of jobs open around the Clayton area, which is really useful for me. So if you're living in regional areas, it might be a little bit more difficult to find work. But around these sort of almost campus towns, there's quite a great amount of work available.
Fantastic. James, how's it affected you?
Yeah, I tend to agree that depending on what sort of job you're looking for, there's plenty of industries at the moment that are actually going really well. I know that there's a lot of houses going up in regional towns. So I got a little bit of manual labor work pretty easily during this time. But if you're not into that sort of stuff, I can see why it would be difficult. But it doesn't matter what sort of job you really get. If it's just part-time, you've got to accept that you're not going to work that for the rest of your life. Stacking shelves, doing stuff like that. It's not the worst thing in the world to make some pretty easy money.
Yeah, every little bit helps, doesn't it?
Money's money.
Exactly right. Now, both of you made reference to cooking large quantities of food at home. So here's the question, James, I'll go to you. What's the go-to recipe? What's your favorite recipe?
It has to be a big spag bowl,
Oh.
a big spag bowl with a heap of veggies in it. So you sort of feel like you've been a little bit healthy, even though it's a massive carb meal.
Yeah.
Carrot, zucchini, onion, anything I can squeeze in to make me feel like I'm getting my vitamins.
Now, is that a family recipe, or did you actually learn that from another student?
I guess it's probably a family recipe, like the grating the carrots and the zucchini in, but I feel like it's a pretty generic one. But I've experimented. I have tried to add olives through and chili and all sorts of different things. It's changed a few times because I've had it so much it does get a little bit boring, but it is the go-to.
Yeah, fantastic. And Cassidy, what's your go-to?
My go-to is a giant pot of dal, or just any curry really, because lentils, rice, beans, split peas, it is so cheap to buy these big bags, and that it fills you up.
Yeah.
Like you eat a big bowl of dal, you do not need to eat for quite a while,
Yeah, I think Cassidy also made mention of 22 people in one kitchen being
Oh
living
yeah.
on campus. So do you find you guys actually pull resources and cook together and share meals that way, or is everyone doing their own thing?
Sometimes we like to do these big family meals. It's really lovely when that happens because it's also great for like building a community.
Yeah.
And sort of like the more expensive parts of the average pantry, i.e., spices. We've got a spice drawer and it's just filled to the brim with, the bags and the jars of spices. That's really just made it a lot cheaper for all of us to cook. But yeah, communal eating is great if it's an option,
Mm.
especially if someone's got a rice cooker. Buy a rice cooker. I know people don't like unitaskers. Buy a rice cooker.
Fantastic advice and a worthwhile investment by the
Oh
sounds of it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in all seriousness, James, I'll flick back to you. What advice would you give someone, I guess, thinking about going to university or a TAFE or independent tertiary college and making that commitment to move into that area or region?
Well, there's quite. I could go on with all the different things that I've learned. I think just to put yourself out there in making new friends, and as I said earlier, not be afraid to ask for help or introduce yourself to someone who might need help, because often the question that you're thinking other people will have, and you can build bonds by learning together. So yeah, there's a heap of different tips and tricks, but with more people together, you're always going to be smarter and stronger. So make friends that way, and use your friends as resources to learn and to have better assignments and just have more fun.
Great advice. You're in a network, I guess, of like-minded students. So drawing upon that as a resource is really handy thing to know. Cassidy, any words of wisdom on why someone should make the transition?
On top of course, making friends, incredibly valuable advice. Um, in the tough times, keep your eyes on the prize. Just remember, you're here to study. You're here so that you can basically live your dream career. Um, so when it is difficult, remember there is a reason to it, and just think back on why you chose it, because oftentimes thinking back on why you chose that career is just a really great motivator.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. I actually just did good one question in the chat there, which I might make reference to just quickly. It's from Ben. It says, how do you find the immediate time after finishing high school, like the new location and lifestyle? So we did cover on that just briefly. Do you want to touch base that again, Cassidy, just quickly?
I'm sure. So immediately after finishing high school, it's almost like you're floating because you've gone from, having this, again, incredibly structured lifestyle day in, day out for what, 13 years now? And then you're sort of thrown out there and you don't really have anything specific you need to do. And that can be really disorienting. So um, even just getting a bit of a routine in could just really help with the mental health, because that can be a really tough period for mental health. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Cassidy. James, would you like to throw in something on that as well?
Yeah, well, as Cassidy said, you do feel like you're floating a little bit straight after high school. I mean, there's probably a few things that you've wanted to do before the exams that you've probably been had not enough time to do. So I think a while ago now, I think I wrote a big list of things that I wanted to do before I moved away to uni. But also when you get to uni, I moved only a week before I think I started. So it's a pretty quick jump. But at the same time, those clubs and even events that you don't have to sign up for, they really help you find the things in uni that you might not find otherwise. Because it's pretty daunting going around all these buildings that you've got no idea what they are. But if you do go into any of those events, they'll often point you in the right direction, or you'll find new places pretty easily. And going to any of the orientation week stuff, as I mentioned before, is a really, really good way to meet people, but also to get to know your uni.
Great. Thanks, James. Thanks for the question, Ben. Eric, can we go to the next slide? Thanks. Okay, so applying. Once you've decided what you'd like to study, it's time to apply. And I guess for many courses, particularly certificates and diplomas at TAFEs and some independent tertiary colleges, you will need to apply directly to the institution by completing an application form on their website. Most other courses, particularly university courses, will require application through the Victorian Tertiary Admissions Centre or VTAC. Now, VTAC applications opened in August. Might go to the next slide there, Erica. Thank you. And timely applications closed at 5 p.m. on 30th September. So what does timely mean? It means that your application will cost you more if you apply after the 30th September. So please check the VTAC website for fee amounts. VTAC lets you apply for up to 8 courses at once across multiple institutions in order of your preference. So you treat this as a wish list of the things that you're interested in studying, not just things that you think that you'll get into. So it's really important to put your preference, your number one preference right up the top. But remember to make sure that you fulfill all the entry requirements, including subject prerequisites and any extra requirements to ensure that you're eligible. Please also to be sure to include your pathway. So not just having your top preference, but plan A, B, and C, and also to use the correct course codes because that can vary from course to course. Special Entry Access Schemes, or Cs, VTAC has this in place. So this allows applicants to submit their application for special consideration. And that's if there's been any circumstances that have made it difficult for you to do your best study. Cs is designed to make sure institutions get a sense of your full potential, and it enables institutions to consider the circumstances you have experienced and the impact on your studies while making their selection decisions. So you only have to submit one Cs application and all institutions that you've applied for will be able to access it. So it saves you time communicating your circumstances with multiple institutions. So just quickly, there's 4 particular categories in Cs. Category 1, which is personal information and location. Category 2, which is disadvantaged financial background. Category 3, which is disability or medical condition. And category 4, which is difficult circumstances. So you can apply for as many of those categories that are relevant to your situation, so long as you apply to each category for a different reason. So you may be required to also submit supporting documentation, but once again, please visit VTAC website for more details. The slide there says that Cs and scholarship applications also close on the 8th of October. So you'll also, once you've submitted your application through VTAC, you'll be able to change your preferences at a certain time. So these are referred to as a change of preference period. So the ATAR release date is on the 16th of December. And once you know your ATAR, there will be a change of preference period where you can reorder, add, or remove courses from your list. You still must meet all the prerequisites and any extra requirements for the courses you're applying for to be considered. The first round offers released on the 14th of January. This is where most course offers will be made, but not all. So if you don't get an offer in this round, don't panic. Your course just might be making offers in the next rounds. The change of preference will open again for a short time immediately after that offer round. And then the next round of offers will be released and then the cycle repeats itself. So when you do receive an offer, you can accept it, reject it, or defer it. So deferring means that you can accept the offer, but you're asking an institution to hold your place for 6 or 12 months before starting. This can be really handy if you're looking to do work, take a gap year, just like Cassidy did, before you start your course. However, check with the institution that it allows a deferral in your course, as some don't because of work placement commitments and requirements, for example, in the medical industry. So we recommend to always accept your first round offer, as you'll still be eligible to receive offers from higher preferences in later rounds. Please note that some institutions accept direct applications after VTAC closes, and they may also offer mid-year intakes as well. So remember, it's important to do some research and ask your career practitioners or contact your institutions directly for further information. And I'd like to throw back to Erica to sum up.
Great, thank you, Anthony. That was awesome. So yeah, really important for everybody to remember those dates because, you know, if you pay after the 30th of September, the amount goes pretty significantly up. So make sure you, as we mentioned in this presentation, you budget for that and you've got that all organized. If we don't have any more questions, I would like to say a big thank you to our student panel, James and Cassidy. It has been a pleasure to have you tonight. It's been so good to learn about your experience and great advice, really good tips. I feel like I'm going to take that tip of the spag bowl with the veggies. That sounds like a really good one. And look, if anybody has any questions and you're not too sure, you've got your career practitioner or you can contact any of the institutions directly. And we're here to support you, and whatever the decision that you're going to make to whichever institute, we're here for you. So have a lovely evening and we'll see you next year. This is the last event for TIES. So have a good evening. See you later.